the greatest warrior in challenge history puts on a show. Plus, Kaycee finally speaks, and couldn't be more wrong. Gladiator promo goes crazy. No adjustments made for Era 1 to have any chance at any of this. Cory gets heated. Theo averts the blame. Rachel has a nasty right hook. And I honestly can't believe they didn't sneak in more uses of "Are you not entertained?" It's the Challenge Battle of the Eras Episode 8 recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow Challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future. If it's happening in the Challenge universe, we are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated Challenge Historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very much for being here with me on this Monday morning. It's been a minute since the episode last Wednesday night. I appreciate your patience. As I said a week and a half ago now, when covering episode number 7, I had an impromptu trip to Norway, as one does. I was in Norway last week. I did not have a chance to see the episode until I was back last night. And so we're recording as soon as we can. We're still getting the episode out. It might be the Monday after, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, normally if I was going to have to do an episode on Monday after the Wednesday episode, I would have listened to everything. I would have been out in social media. I would have consumed every little nugget of information every cast member gave and every opinion everyone else talking about the show had given. I have done none of that. This is basically, I watched the episode last night, and this is as fresh as if I had watched the episode live on a Wednesday. So I'm not even going to be able to give you the recap of what everyone else has said. Besides, I did at least see a tweet here or there confirming that Derek, yes, in fact, did have torn ligaments in his knee while he was doing all of this. So we've got at least that little tiny piece of information that was pretty known within the episodes. They just seemingly weren't allowing him to say that out loud on the episode, which we will discuss at length. So thank you for your patience. We will be back the next few weeks at minimum, if not the rest of the season, to Wednesday night recordings and postings, late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. So expect that. And the rest of this month is just going to be Battle of the Eras recaps. Into November, we will have some additional content coming your way. So as always, if you are listening and not following or subscribed, whether it's on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, wherever it may be, please hit those buttons. Those help us out a ton. Agenda for the evening, it will be a little quicker than normal. We're going to hit the whole episode, but try to keep it as much as possible to just the highest level things. You guys have already probably consumed a bunch of recaps and material related to this episode, so we'll keep it a little bit quicker. We're going to skip the awards for this week. We will, though, hit the targets and the predictions at the end, because that is one of the biggest storylines to discuss, is that there was still no change in the format, and Rachel was just sent back up by her lonesome. So we'll talk about it all. Let's dive in. Episode number 8. I don't know what it was called. It might as well be called Gladiator promo episode number 8, the Challenge Battle of the Eras. Here we go. Starting with the opening section of the episode, very little to say here, but one very important thing that is ultimately doesn't really matter for the season at all. It probably doesn't fit what I just said. We're only going to hit the highest level commentary and thoughts and storylines here, but I've got to say it because I've been as nice as anyone about Kaycee being on the challenge. I don't know that I would say full on defended her at every turn by any means, but I have always given very mild defenses of like, hey, I think there is a personality there where she's just so consumed in like playing the game that we don't get to see any of it. She's just super quiet, and at least she is really good as an athlete, and that's interesting and whatever. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's not fine anymore. Okay. The confessional she gives saying that, she's basically playing with a bunch of rookies. She's talking shit about Jenny's game specifically, and then says, I got to remember I'm playing with a bunch of rookies here basically on Era 4. And that's some bullshit, okay? Because one, Jenny is a champion and whooped your ass. Her ass, Kaycee's ass, was whooped in the Total Madness final, as was everyone else's in that final, male and females included, by Jenny. So let's not be saying that. That was before you had won a season, and that was on her own without getting to switch partners to CT for the final puzzle of your season. And no one on your team is a rookie regardless. So whether you're talking shit about Jenny, who is as good, is a better player than you on the physical side of this game, and I think is actually just as good on the strategy side of things. She just hasn't been on enough seasons and befriended enough people who came from the same show as she did. And no one else on your team is a rookie either. So whether the shit talking is in regards to Theo or to, Paulie, who was there before, or to Kyland or Olivia, like, too bad. Get over it. You are very lucky to be riding so easily, skating by so easily on this team. And I think you're much more disposable to your team, especially this far into the game now than she's letting on. So yeah, I've been nice for as long as I can. That confessional really bothered me because if you have been listening this season, especially the previews and things, I'm a big Jenny West defender and champion of Jenny West, and always will remind everyone, whoever tried to say that she's not that interesting or she's a little boring too and is just the athlete, that she was the story of Total Madness. And they edited it all out because they had to edit D out, and it was Jenny versus D, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on, and she otherwise would have been the most screen time, the most confessionals, the most entertaining probably on Total Madness, if not for that very strange decision they made to edit half of the show out because of, the things D said and whatnot. So hope maybe that'll be the last time, probably not, that I mentioned that. Anyways, so screw that from Kaycee. Go Jenny, as always. We'll talk more about this later because Jenny proves, along with Theo, how adept they are at this game. The only other thing from the opening, Ryan moves out. Good job by him, of course. Like, finally, yeah, okay, there's enough empty beds here. Like, I don't need to be in the same room as Bananas and Laurel if we're just going to bicker and argue and, be annoying to each other every time we do anything. And also, if you're in a challenge house, like, I'm the first one. I would be the first one to be like, is there an empty room yet? Like, can I just sleep by myself? That would be ideal. Is there anyone else that just wants to go to bed at a reasonable hour and sleep and actually go to sleep, and no one's romantic, no one's doing anything, no one's partying, whatever? I'd be the first one trying to pull that, but good for him. And of course, he knows as well as anyone that the moment he does this, Bananas is going to, like, make a funny little scene out of it, or attempt to make a funny little scene out of it. And he does. He takes the bait. They make some TV. Good for them. The final thing I have to just say about this, though, it made me realize, like, moving beds is a thing on every challenge season that, as people are eliminated, more beds are open. You can kind of move around who you're with from that first initial, like, everyone just scrambles and runs in, and suddenly half of the rooms don't make any sense because the other half do, and friends joined up and whatnot. This season has to have set the record, though, for people moving beds. There's no way to confirm this. I would love to ask some cast members if it was the case, if there was a lot of moving, or if people wanted to be with their eras in the beginning, because it seemed like in the beginning they were kind of told to some degree, like, eras go in rooms together, but they had 40 beds to start this thing, and a lot of people eliminated very quickly. Maybe they only had 32 beds. Maybe those first folks eliminated never actually slept in the house. I don't know. I don't remember at this point. It's been 2 months ago now, 2.5, over 2 months, because we had that week off. But I would just imagine 40 beds, bunch of people leaving right away, with the biggest cast ever, the most beds ever, that this is the number one season for moving rooms. Now that I have completely abandoned the idea of only talking about the highest level, most important things, we've covered Kaycee not being, not saying things I like, and Ryan moving beds, very high level, important topics. Let's move to the daily challenge, which was obviously consequential and important to the episode and ultimately the season. Look, we knew what it was going to be. We knew from the trailer, the original trailer, and then last week, the next week on, they told us this is coming. We knew it's the Riot Shield elimination of some kind that we had seen before on Cutthroat. That was one of the most vicious and brutal daily challenges we had ever seen in challenge history, and they were bringing it back, and didn't fully realize they were doing so to coincide with the Gladiator 2 promo, which most seasons feature an action movie promo. We had Top Gun Maverick once. We had my beloved Fast and Furious franchise book available on Amazon. If you don't know, I've written a book about the Fast and Furious franchise. We've had a bunch over the years. This one definitely made the most sense. It's also, Top Gun Maverick's pretty amazing. But Gladiator 2 is right there with Top Gun of like, they're getting the biggest brand name, hopefully awesome movie of the, not summer in this case, late or early fall, as Gladiator 2 comes out in a couple weeks. But big get for them as far as the promo you're going to do, and does match the challenge and what they're able to put together for this daily and elimination pretty good. So great job there. And great job. They only really use the "Are you not entertained?" like twice. They made TJ say it right at the start, and I thought, oh God, here we go. Like the challenge is horrible at the producers forcing them to use lingo or specific words or phrases or anything. And I anticipated that we were about to hear that line like 32 times, and we didn't. So good job on them by not overusing the most famous line from the first movie. Anyways, the daily challenge itself, Riot Shield. Let's get back on track here. I was very excited for it, but I assumed they were going to do something to even it out in some way. There was no perfect way to make this like perfectly fair between a team of 2 and a team of 7 or 8, whatever the Era 4 has left. But they could have tried a little bit harder than what they did, which was male round, female round, King of the Hill style. If you get knocked out, you're out. Most team members left standing after both rounds wins. So out of 2 for one team, how many do you have standing? Out of 7 for another team. And then in between that is ridiculous, is absolutely ridiculous. And for the 3rd or 4th week in a row, I know that they weren't planning on Era 1 losing people every single week and being so much smaller. And so in their mind, they're thinking, like one team will be a person or 2 smaller, but all of these will be in the same like 4, 5, 6 people left range. And so there'll be little advantages, but it won't be too bad. I know that's what they were planning for. They needed to audible more over the last couple weeks than they did, which was to say they didn't at all, because Rachel and Derek should have some chance, and they quite literally had 0 chance in this. Like, yes, they both could have stayed to the very end and got 2 people, and there's a world where a different team has less than 2. But that world is pretty difficult to come about, and basically would have taken Era 4, essentially, because of how big they were and how dominant they were going to be at this game, given the athleticism of all of the people left on their team. Like they were really going to have a really good shot here, and they cleaned up as expected. It would have taken Era 4 being like, Era 1, you're with us this time. Like, you're with us. You're straight up, just act like you're on our team. We're going to protect you. We don't want you to get last. Our goal here is to get 2 and 3, one of them to get last. And, we'll pick on one and then we'll vote in the other. They would have had to do that up front. And I know Derek and Theo had the agreement, whatever, but that would have been really difficult to pull off. So I think they needed to do something way different with how they structured this. I think there's a world where they could have done one-on-one style, like bracket, like just random draw. Here's the male bracket. Here's the female bracket. Whoever wins for both, if they're from the same team, that team wins. If they're from 2 different teams, we flip a coin and do either a male or female championship one-on-one matchup of sort. It could have looked very similar to, I believe it was back on the Gauntlet 2, when Derek did win. It was Derek and I think Beth were the 2 winners that day. They had to like walk the plank off the side of the little ship and do one-on-one little like sumo match to knock each other off. And it's maybe Derek's most impressive of all of his impressive victories in his challenge career. That specific one where it was like he went like against like Brad, CT, and Evan or someone else like super big, I want to say, and beat them all and knocked them all off the thing. They could have done that, which still would have been a disadvantage to a Derek and a Rachel of like, you guys have to win this on your own and play and compete every single round. Whereas the other teams could, in theory, be like, oh, well, 2 Era 4 people are going against each other. So like Theo and Kylan would be like, Theo, you're going to be better at this. I'll just kind of forfeit this round. You don't even have to like do anything, put the effort in. There would have been an advantage there, but at least it would have given Derek and Rachel a shot to run the table, not get last place, maybe even find a way to pull out a win. So yeah, I was very bummed that this is how this went, because it is a super cool elimination. It's terrifying. It's super dangerous. We didn't see too many injuries, given that Derek's were injuries from prior that he somehow, I hopefully didn't make too much worse, if any worse, during this, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, it was ridiculous, because once after the men went and Derek got knocked out, for Rachel, I know she has way too much heart and way too much like warrior spirit, and enjoys doing the physical side of this game and getting to show out the way she does. But like, she shouldn't have played. There was no mathematical way for them to not get last place. Like, the best they could have done was somehow, some way, if she could have stayed and gotten, I think it was all of Era 2 out. Maybe Era 2 only had one Ryan left in the male side. So like, they could have tied. She could have gotten all of the Era 2 women out. She could have gotten Cara and Laurel and Aviv out and stayed in and tied for last if she got all of them out quicker than, I think Bananas was the second to last Era 2 guy out, which was kind of near the end. So she basically had a 0% chance of them not getting last. She didn't need to play, but just like, oh, go ahead and do it, because then you'll go into the elimination after doing this crazy physical game. I just didn't like all of it. Rant over there. I guess we'll finish one further thing. Derek shouldn't be doing this. I just mentioned it, but he has a torn, I think he said ACL and meniscus, something to that effect. Whatever the tears were, he has a torn up ligaments in his knee. He should not be he shouldn't be competing on the challenge anymore. That should be all right, we're going to have to, you got to go home on that one, let alone doing this game of all the games to be doing. Is we're just going to beat each other to death with riot shields and like try to push each other off on a muddy platform, similar muddy platform to the mud that he landed in wrong and twisted and broke that knee up in the first place. Shouldn't be doing this. He's an absolute warrior. I get he was okay with it, I assume. I haven't listened to him on Challenge Mania yet, but you stop the guy from potentially doing more damage to himself. I think it probably came from a like, we kind of need you to like lose within the game. We can't, your team's already almost gone. Like, we don't know what to do if you just DQ and out of here, and we're already then down to a team that doesn't have any men left. Like, I get why they were doing it, but I couldn't disagree with all of it more. Derek and Cory afterwards, nothing burger to me. Cory was heated up, the whole situation of the thing of him, he's on the chopping block. He's probably going in. He says no to a deal. And then at the end, he's like, oh, no, I'm going to try to make a deal. And they say no. And now he's like, shit, I'm pretty sure that we're going in. And I felt like I maybe did the best of anyone there, and it doesn't matter because it's a team game and my team hates me. And it just, you're all riled up from rocking each other with riot shields. And somehow Derek ends up on the receiving end of it. Derek tossing the life jacket at him. Couldn't care less about that. Found it hilarious that Jordan, when it's brought up in the arena, Jordan does the like, you got to throw it at, you got it when he's looking. You got it when he's looking, Derek. We know that. Come on, you don't do that. It's like, dude, he tossed a life jacket at his back. You guys just beat the hell out of each other with riot shields. I don't know if you witnessed that. We were all doing it. Your faces all beat up, Jordan. Like, this isn't the time to be like, let's all have honor amongst each other, beating each other up. Like, yeah, big nothing burger to me on the little tussle afterwards, but don't think Derek should have been competing. I think Rachel, I know she would never do it, but the smartest thing to do would have been like, I'm not doing this. Like, there's no point to this. And the game is cool as hell. I just wish there was a way for it to be fair, even remotely in the realm of fairness that the challenge usually operates in. Back to then the house and the nominations, and there's a bunch of conversations, a bunch of things happen here, but it all boils down to who is picked and why. Let's look from Rachel and Derek's perspective first. This ultimately is really, really easy. Rachel, one, likes Cara and would prefer to go against Avery. Like, if she has to pick, would, Cara or Avery, who you going in blind in an elimination? I would like to go against Avery. Also, for what it matters, Cara and I have a bit of a friendship now from the last season and this and everything else. So Rachel super locked in on like, I want to go against Avery, not Cara. That makes total and complete sense. Absolutely easy perspective to understand. Then you add on to it, Derek is literally has a torn ligaments in his knee. And so he knows that they should just do what's best for Rachel, and that's it, which is both smart and very honorable from Derek to not push in any way. Because if on his side, yes, if he was fully healthy, definitely an argument to say blind going into an elimination, I'll take Derek instead of Cory. But in this instance, it's like, yeah, like it doesn't really matter for me. I'm not winning this game. I'm not going to not only win this elimination, but go on and win this whole game on a torn ACL. So let's do what's best for Rachel and only what's best for Rachel first and everything. And it makes sense. So plus they're also then like, you throw in the last part that's not even needed. Not only is Rachel close to Cara, but like Rachel and Derek in tandem are much closer to Cara and Derek than they are Cory and Avery by a lot. So from their perspective, clear as day why they would choose the team they want to choose. And from Theo and Jenny's perspective, making the decision, it's also pretty easy. Even though Avery and Cory are on the bottom of era 3, similar to Theo and Jenny being on the bottom of era 4, Cara and Derek are on the opposite side of them in a way, because on era 2, Jenny and Theo, their best connection is bananas. Like, even though, Cara and Theo, they say, we have this history, that history got kind of blown up a bit. And so those people are on like the opposite side of era 2 than who their teammates are. Like Cara and Derek are not with the people whose their teammates are working with. I said all that backwards at the beginning. My notes were terrible on this, but I'll try to re-explain a slightly better here. Everyone else on Era 4 that is not working with Theo and Jenny is pretty openly working with Bananas and Laurel, whether that's, Kaycee, Josh, and Michelle have already openly worked with Bananas and said as much, which means they're also kind of working with Laurel a little bit. So from Theo and Jenny's perspective, like, we can save Cara, and Theo can at least like wink, wink, like, yeah, that is fine for now. You should protect me. And it is kind of going against their team even more than just not doing what their team wants. It's like for a reason that their team doesn't want to. And in getting to spite your team in the way that they do, they are masterful in finding a way to like, okay, before we make this decision, let's go put it to a vote. And let's push that vote. Let's be very vocal during it, but force everyone essentially to vote for what we want so that we can then go tell everyone it was a vote, it was a team decision, and they know if doing that the blowback will then be on those other people. And it works perfectly. Sure, everyone tries, they get called out for exactly what they did, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter to them, and it shouldn't, because while someone, they have multiple people saying exactly like, you're just trying to pin this on us, like it was your decision, you bullied your way to it in the voting thing, whatever, it doesn't matter. Kaycee and Josh are getting called out over and over, and it is showing the divide of like, your alliance is pretty big. We're getting down, about halfway through this game. A bunch of people have left. Your alliance is kind of too big to operate as one unit at this point, and we're going to go ahead and highlight some of those cracks and let you guys fight over it. And it doesn't matter if people see exactly what we're doing, because we're still highlighting something that needs to be discussed and needs to be highlighted. And that's where all of the animosity goes to. And it's a masterclass by two people who were called rookies by Kaycee earlier in the episode. So they put Josh and Kaycee in the hot seat, which, to add the cherry on top, is they're putting him in the hot seat over Cory going in. This isn't, hey, Devin or Tori, or I guess Tori's on their team, but I guess it would be Devin would be the obvious example. Or no, Tori's not. She's on Air 3, obviously. Duh. Anyway, it's not one of the actual Vacation Alliance members going in and being like, okay, now Josh and Kaycee really have some shit to discuss here. Like, what are you doing? It's Cory, who is actively not a part of the group. It's the one that is getting all this attention put on Josh and Kaycee. So Theo and Jenny, masterclass, makes absolute sense from their perspective, makes absolute sense from Rachel and Derek's perspective. And final thought on this section, the chamber between Cory and Derek was really, really great. Between everyone, it was a good chamber, even with like an obvious result of where this is going to go. It was still very performative and very fun, and I thought everyone did good. I thought Avery and Cory should have felt as good as they did afterwards, of like, we did what we should have done. We're going in, but that doesn't matter. Loved every second of it. Then we've got the arena, and the game is fantastic, except it is the advantage disadvantage thing. Being on defense first is a massive, massive advantage in this game. So while I love it, and it's crazy that we just got to watch a blind boxing match where they just rained haymakers on each other for 5 minutes each, which is insane. This should, like, if they would have told me this is the design of the game, how long do you think they're going to make the rounds? I would have been like 2 minutes, maybe 1.5 minutes. Do they get 60 seconds, 90 seconds? Like, seems like a long time to just get to. I know they're blindfolded, but you can hear where they're moving, and it's only so big of a ring. They're going to get swings in, and there's no rules to how you swing. You're blindfolded, so you might be punching the back of their head and not knowing it. I would have guessed 90 seconds, 2 minutes at most. 5 minutes was a hell of a long time to get to just be wailed on by a blindfolded person. So that was crazy on its own. But while the game's fantastic, while it's crazy that we just got to watch them have a boxing match, more or less, it is ridiculous how much of an advantage it is to be on defense first, because the biggest part is where the targets are at. The whole thing of being blindfolded is you don't know which ones you've hit or not hit. But also, if you go first, maybe you get to watch the other person get dressed and put all the things on. Maybe not. I don't know. But it is still a lot harder to know where the targets are at. Where should I be aiming? Do I think I've hit this section of the body enough? Where's the other ones? And especially to know where the 4 that are on their head, which also, why was one on the back of the head, like neck, head, whatever, like, don't put one there. But you get to know where the targets are because you've worn them, you've lived them, so you know where you should be aiming on the body. And I know you're blindfolded, you can't aim, but like, you can know, how high am I swinging? Am I going for the head range, the shoulder range, the body, anywhere lower? Am I trying to grab them and get to the back and like swipe down their back, et cetera, et cetera? You have a lot of knowledge that the person who goes first on offense doesn't. And you also get to know how many you need. Do you like, did I get all of them or not? Do I feel like I got all of them or not? And how fast you need to do it. Was I swipe until the last second, or did I feel like, was everyone yelling, 2 minutes in, like, you got them, you did it. So you get so much information. It is a huge advantage to be on defense first. This, again, is super dangerous. The daily and the elimination this episode lives up to the Gladiator billing. It is super dangerous. A lot of punches to the head. Everyone not named Rachel took a lot of punches to the head. Rachel seemed to escape without much damage to the head region. And I know they're wearing the pads and they're obviously wearing gloves. It's still getting rocked in the face is getting rocked in the face. It still doesn't feel good. And Avery got rocked a bunch of times. And Cory and Derek got rocked a bunch of times in their rounds. So good on all 4 of them for doing this and putting their all into it and taking the hits. Rachel smokes it, obviously. Avery, it's got to just be said, obviously, a horrible strategy, as is commented on by multiple people in the episode. You got to move. You got to run. In the moment, she doesn't, and then they open Rachel's round with, just run in circles. Like, can you run in circles for 5 minutes while getting punched in the back? Like, great, you can win this thing. The not moving strategy was obviously a tough one, but she still gave a really good performance, and I think she showed out in limited time this season and between All-Stars 4, and this showed that, like, yes, she is a very quality competitor in this game, and we know on the pending who's in the house and everything else, she can bring it on the personality and storyline side and everything else. So hope to see Avery back. Rachel dominates. Derek then, I'll say one more time, should not be doing this. An absolute warrior. I know he probably wanted to or was okay with it to enough degree to do it. And he gets 10 out of 10 credit for being the absolute warrior. We already knew he was a 10 out of 10 on the just heart, determination, warrior scale, but it's just another, maybe he finally breaks the scale and is a true 11 or 12 out of 10. I guess we could say that, but shouldn't be doing this. It is dangerous. It is a bummer that he's doing this on the leg that he is doing this on. And it'd be interesting to know what happens, if any, different on, because he does so damn well on one leg. It's like he could have done it faster is the only thing. He got all of them, but could he have done it faster on one leg? We'll never totally know. I think he definitely could have played defense faster on one leg. But him and Cory both insane performance, incredible. Cory gets the win. And honestly, it is another one of those where, like, it's better for the season that Cory won. Not that I would be rooting for Cory over Derek or even know who I'd want to win just in a vacuum in that matchup. I really like both those people. But for this season, given that Derek was injured, apologies to him for that, it is much more interesting to have Cory, who has a lot of animosity towards everyone and is 100% healthy, we think, at this point. Who knows, after, again, he was hitting people as much as anyone in the Riot Shield and then goes through this, but is fully healthy and has animosity on within his team. It is the better outcome for the eventual season we're going to still see. Let's talk targets and some predictions. So the targets are as follows, and it was notable, they go in reverse order finally. They say Era 4 first, finally. We talked about that, I think last week, covered that has been an advantage for Era 4 to get called or volunteer last. Kaycee, Kyland, Devin, Tori, Laurel, Ryan, and I guess Rachel. Laurel is the only one who doesn't volunteer of that group. And at least on the women's side, if we assume that Rachel is available here for elimination again, Kaycee, Tori, Laurel, and Rachel, we've got athletes, no matter what the combination the two of those four end up being. So give us another physical, fun, athletic-based elimination, and we're going to have an amazing show one way or the other, whoever ends up in there. I don't, though, this is where we'll discuss why the hell Rachel is going to have to do this alone. So they don't switch anything. Maybe it's, for now, and maybe they'll make the switch at the daily challenge in some way. I don't know. But at this point, because they haven't switched anything at the beginning of this week or now seemingly going into next week, it makes me think, are they not switching? Because if they had something to switch to, I would think it would be an easy-ish audible to make of we were going to do it after X amount of eliminations and dailies, but shit, we got one team with two people left. We'll just do it now. We'll just do it 2 weeks early, 2 cycles early, and we'll figure it out. We'll adjust accordingly, maybe tweak the dailies or the elims slightly, whatever we got to do. It seems like if there was something to switch to or a planned thing that would be switched to in the future, that they could audible to it. And because they haven't, it makes me think, are we doing teams for the whole season? Are they actually going to stick with the team format until they get to the final and then introduce some sort of element where either you run it as a team and there's a point getter that wins, or they eventually break up, or somehow, some way they find a way to individual male and female winners, but which I'm all for. So I'm hoping that I'm right. I'm hoping this means that, hey, it's teams the whole way. And so this sucks, but we knew at some point someone would be down to 1 or 2 people left. We thought they would be going up against, 4-person teams or whatever, not there would be 1 person left versus a 7-person team and a 6 and a 5 or whatever. But if not, if in the next week or two, they switch the game up and they're now it's individuals, or now you get to pair up, or just somehow, some way they change the team format, I'm going to be furious that they didn't find a way to just audible to whatever they had planned earlier and give Derek and Rachel and Tina and Darrell before them a real shot at this, because by the time it got whittled down the way it had and the way they were doing the daily challenges and it being such a disadvantage to have less people, I feel like Air 1, it's on them, how badly they performed the first handful of weeks and how quickly they lost their first few people. But it wasn't on them these last 3 people having gone home, as far as, the odds were greatly stacked against them. So don't know what they're going to do there, but I'm hopeful that this means, as someone who would have come into the season being please, 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 it is my greatest wish, pick a format, stick to it, do a team season the whole way through, maybe we actually are going to get that. So maybe this is a really positive sign that we got at the end of this episode. As for predictions, what will in fact happen in next episode, we're back and forth here, y'all. We had a week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where we were perfect. We had a week then where we were completely wrong, a 0% grade on 2 weeks ago. And then last week's predictions, we went perfect again. We said Air 1 would lose because I didn't know how Derek would be able to do Riot Shield on a torn knee, and also that they might not have a way to make it even. That was correct. Multiple people get hurt. Thankfully, there was not severe injuries. Again, Derek's had previously occurred, so that obviously is a very serious industry. But we have There's multiple people bleeding. There's Jordan's face is all beat to hell. So we'll count that one. If Laurel tries and there's any sort of last person standing, she can win the girls portion. But if it's not last person standing, Era 4 should dominate. Was not last person standing. Era 4 dominated. And then I thought that it would be Era 1 versus 3 in the elimination then, and Rachel and Cory would win. And that was all nailed it. So just perfect predictions. 1 week, 0% the next, perfect the next, which means my predictions for next week, if we follow this pattern, are going to be 0% correct. So here are those potentially completely wrong predictions. But I think Rachel is going to win the daily somehow. I think they're going to keep her on by herself. And I think it's for the first time all season, the less players is going to play to her advantage, especially because it's her. And I would think if whatever it is, it's going to be like, Rachel, you got to do it 4 times. Like sorry, but we can't have you just do it once and everyone else do it. You've got to do it 4 times. And she'll be like, great, amazing. I'm in ridiculous shape. I don't know if you've noticed. I can do whatever you need me to do multiple times over. I think she's going to win the daily somehow, some way. And she's going to be sitting by herself at the head of the chamber. And it's going to be fantastic to see. And going off that prediction, I would think then she will save Era 2. Unless, I guess I'm predicting that either Era 3 or 4 loses then. Era 2 is available. She saves Era 2 because Ryan is there. And we get Era 3 versus 4 in the elimination, which would mean Kaycee, Tori, and Devin and Kyland. And I would say Kaycee and Devin then go home there. So Rachel wins, saves Era 2. Kaycee and Devin lose to Kyland and Tori. Those are your predictions. Probably just flip that, completely reverse that, and that's what will in fact actually happen. The biggest thing is if Rachel is by herself and loses or is chosen, is there a male elimination? Is there not a male elimination? I would think there would have to be. It's still like even numbers total in the house, male and female. It's just one team doesn't have one. So will be interesting to see how they handle that and just handle all of this in general. But that's your predictions, targets, storylines, the whole dang thing. Obviously, we didn't give out the awards, but obviously Derek is the MVP of this episode. With respect to Rachel, Derek is the MVP of this episode for sure. I think she would agree as well. We'll be back next week, as we said, Wednesday night, back to the regular time. Thank you for the patience in getting this out. Thank you to anyone who still listens to this 4 days, 5 days later, whatever the case is at this point. I love you. I appreciate you. I will talk to you very soon in 2.5 days on Wednesday night for episode 9. Until then, peace.